Welcome back to more Cake Yes Mom Badass Out of Art. I'm your girl Jalena, and today I'm going to show you guys how I created this beauty right here. Look how gorgeous she is. Is she not gorgeous? She's so gorgeous. Before we get started, hit the like button, hit subscribe, comment below. By liking my video, it'll help me out in the long run with the YouTube algorithm by suggesting to other people to watch my videos. 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 Video. Oh. Let's get started. What I did was I cut out a circle with a circle cutter on the light brown fondant. I wanted all of my characters to have like this bulging effect. All of them have that except the Christmas tree. They all have like this bulging effect as if from the front they look like they could be 3D, but really they're just 2D. And by doing that, a little trick is adding a piece of plastic wrap over the top of your fondant and using the cutter and cutting straight through the plastic wrap. It will create this bulge in the center of your fondant where it makes it a little more rounded. So that way it's this cute little rounded cookie. Then I wanted to also stick my cake pop stick in the middle of it, but my cookie was too thin. So I just added a piece of fondant to the back and then sandwiched between the cake pop stick. Using water for everything. Throughout this entire tutorial, I'll be using water for my adhesive. And so I did the same exact thing for the ornament, but this time I made sure that the ornament was more rounded. So from the front, it could be mistaken to be some sort of sphere or ball looking like character. So I cut that out the same exact way with the cookie using the plastic wrap and then added a little yellow top for it. So that's the part that connects to your ornament to hang on the tree. And then I added my cake pop stick inside. I set that one aside and moved on to the next one, the bell. Now, this bell started out being round, same as I did with the cookie and same as I did with the bulb, but of course the bell is not round all together. It's not like a circle. So what I did was I cut out the circle and then I used that same circle to cut out two pieces off to the side. And when you look at it, it looks like you've eaten, like bit off a cookie from both sides. So then all I did was round off the top to be a little more smaller, kind of push that in a little bit, and the bottom is like pushed out like a skirt, which it should already be like that. You don't have to mess with it because it's already rounded from cutting it out with the cookie cutter. Again, adding the, you want to first add the little bell at the bottom, and I used orange for this, the little rounded ball bell at the bottom, and then stick in your cake pop stick. Now for the tree, it was the hardest thing to figure out how I was going to do this tree. I did it like 50 million different ways and none of them were working out until I did it this way. So I made sure I just cut myself out a little template with a piece of paper of the size that I wanted, and my fondant was already in this rounded shape, so all I did was cut out the two sides to make the triangle effect and left the bottom nice and rounded, so that way it can, when I go and push with my tool, I can make it have this like, you know, wavy, like wave look. So I left that bottom part round. And then using one of my fondant tools, I went and made indentions on the side of the tree just so I can show the levels of it. They're not as smooth as I want them to be, but they get the point across. Then I went ahead and added the trunk with some brown fondant at the bottom using water and stuck in my cake pop stick. Next, I created the candy cane character. I rolled out a piece of white fondant and I made sure I kept it pretty thick, and I wanted it to be like short and stout. I didn't want it to be too long. And I just bent over one part of that fondant just to have that candy cane shape. And like the rest of them, stuck in the cake pop stick and set it aside to dry. All of these are getting laid out on a sheet pan as I finish them. And then what I do, which is a little trick, which I shared with you guys on a Tip Tuesday, I put them all on a sheet pan on parchment paper. I stick them in the oven with the oven light on only. That's it. I don't turn the oven on to cook or anything, just the oven light on only. To see that Tip Tuesday, go ahead and click the eye at the top. So the next character was the wreath. And what I did was I cut it out again, just the same as everything else I've been cutting out that was round and has that like dome at the top of it. But what I did was, once I did that, I went and grabbed another cutter, and this I used a donut cutter because it had that perfect circle in the middle of it that I needed. That was the right size, and I didn't have any like standalone circle that size. So I used that to cut out the center of my wreath. And then when I went to add the cake pop stick, I put it in the side. How do I say this? Okay, so here is my wreath, right? And this is my center. I didn't stick the cake pop stick in the center because then you would see it in the middle opening. I stuck it off to the side here within the wreath. And our last character, it was the stocking. He's so cute. So with the stocking, what I did, I grabbed a large amount of fondant, red fondant, and I began to make kind of like a sock-like shape a little bit with and the bottom of it was very bulgy, and then the top of it got a little more smaller in size. And then I added my cake pop stick to it, and then added the white part of the opening of my stocking on the top of it. And then I added some cute little details as a mistletoe on it. And how I did that was because I had this little leaf cutter, and I cut that out, and then I just made the little indents that mistletoes kind of have on it, the little points on it. And then I added little red balls for the mistletoe. Of course, that's not all the decor I did. Later on, I'll add some little gift boxes to go in it. I don't film that part, but it was just pieces of fondant. I put a little bow on it, popped it in the little tops, so that way you could fill in that stocking. And it was cute. Very, very cute. Now, I let these sit overnight to dry out to make sure that they were nice and stiff before I handled them, because just in case I handled them with a stick, I didn't want them falling over or falling off the stick, or the stick coming through it and the fondant being too soft, or me pushing down on it. I didn't want any of those issues, so I let it stay for overnight. And then the next day I came back and I started adding all the extra decor to it, so I can bring like this cuteness to them. So I added all the eyes. All the eyes were in black fondant, little circles that I cut out with a cookie cut, not a cookie cutter, but like a little cutter I had, this little tiny cutter. And then I added all the whites to their eyes, which was like their eyeball, and then the catchlight. And what catchlight is in the drawing world is like, I don't know if you guys ever watch like cartoons like anime, and like the characters like, you know, like looking all worried, and their eyes are all sparkling. It's called a catchlight. So it's that little white light that makes your eye look like it's sparkling or something like that. So I added all of that to all of my characters. So I basically just took each character one by one and added all the decor and the rest of the facial features. I'm gonna go ahead and let this time lapse play along so you guys can see what I did and how cute they turned out. So now that all of my characters are done, again, I set them aside on a piece of parchment paper. I put them back in the oven so they can dry and stiffen. Then I started to create all the extra decor. So when I create my box and I put these toppers in them, I want to make sure that we don't actually see the cake when you're looking in the box. So I wanted to kind of cover up that floor plan. So I wanted to create like these cute little twists and swirls. So the way you do that is you just take strips of fondant and you can wrap them around anything that's like a stick. So I had, of course, some cake pop sticks, and so I just wrapped them around that, twirled it around that. I let it sit for a little bit and dry out, and then I just slowly pulled the stick out. Then for my box, I wanted to have like a lock and a key for it, because my idea story behind this cake is that all of, you put all your decor away at the end of Christmas, at the end of New Year's, and then you bring it back out again for Christmas. This is all the decor coming out of the box, super excited that Christmas is coming and they're ready to go up in all the right places to decorate your home. So I just thought this would be really cute if they were like in this cute little wooden box that seemed kind of like treasure-like, So I created a lock using just some fondant and some of the molds that I had on hand. And then I also created a key, which is a mold that I created myself. If you want to learn how to create your own molds, you can check that out here at the eye at the top. Now for the wood effect. All I did was take one of my fondant tools and start making lines down the fondant, and then like these kind of rounded off shapes in it, kind of ovally rounded shapes in it. Just, real sporadically. No sense to it at all. And I did that to all 4 of them. And for my top, now you want your top to be something light, but I have a piece of styrofoam that's square and I'm going to add some shortening to it. Now I do work with a lot of dummy cake, so I have a container of shortening specifically just for dummy cake, and then go ahead and cover that with some fondant and do the same of wood effect on it with the lines and like the oval little circles and things. Adding the shortening will help the fondant stick to your styrofoam. Don't use water. Water will then make your fondant mushy, and we don't want that. We don't want that at all. Now that my toppers are all dried up, I'm going to go ahead and start working on the actual cake. I'm going to add my sides to my square cake, and you want to add them strategically. Basically add one side to the front and one side to the back. And what I did was I used a piece of cardboard that I cut to size of the height that I wanted my box to be, to make it easier for me to cut my fondant. Now I let my sides sit out for a couple of hours so that way they stiffen up and it'll be easier for me to cut. I lean that up against the sides and use an X-Acto knife just to cut it so I can get a nice straight line out of it. And I did that all the way around. Once I did the front and the back and cut off the sides of the sides, I went ahead and added the other 2 pieces of my box, which would be basically the left and the right. The reason why I'm adding it like this is so that way from the front of the box there's no side seams that you're seeing. So the side seams are being hidden behind the front panel. There's purpose to my madness, I promise you. Now I want to go ahead and paint this. I painted my top and my cake, and basically how I painted this was I grabbed some chocolate brown airbrush color and I hand painted that color in all of those lines and oval rounded shapes that I drew, all in those little crevices, right? Then I grabbed the paper towel that I dampened and I basically wiped it all over the place and just kind of trying to wipe it off. I don't know if you guys have ever stained a piece of furniture, but that's basically what you do. You grab a piece of cloth that's not wet though, but you would grab a piece of cloth, put the stain on, and then just kind of wipe it off. And you want the stain to get in on those crevices so those parts will be a little more darker. I did that method of painting throughout the entire cake along with the top. With the top, I did the bottom, and I did the top of it with all the sides as well. Now that my cake box is painted, it looks so good. So good. Don't forget to paint the inside because you don't want that to be like the wrong color, right? So you want to paint the inside of your box also. The inside panels of the box is what I'm saying. I added all my characters. This took some time. I literally added them all, took them out, added them again, took them out because I wasn't liking the layout. I wanted to be able to see, I knew I wasn't going to be able to see all of their faces at once, but I wanted to be able to see peaks of their faces, like some eyeballs here, an eyebrow here, a mouth, all those things. So I was trying to obviously get like the bigger ones to be in the back and the smaller ones to be in the front. And I didn't want like a green one sitting next to a green one and a red sitting next to red. But then when I looked at it, I was like, okay, the tree's going to have to go in the middle because that's kind of a big deal. It has a star at the top. So it was a lot of maneuvering, but I pretty much figured it out. Once I got all of my characters in and I liked their placement, I went ahead and added my like little swirls that I made with the white fondant. I put all that in there. And then also I got the top to my box to go on it. And the way that I added that was I just used one of the cake pop sticks that I stuck in the styrofoam and stuck it into the cake. And so it worked out beautifully. It really did. It held its weight. It was really light styrofoam. I do suggest that you would use like a longer cake pop stick. Mine wasn't that long, but it's not that heavy, so it's not going anywhere. And then lastly, I added my lock my key. And then I added like these little rounded nuggets on the sides of the box, and I painted everything gold, and she's beautiful. She's so pretty. Hey, thank you so much for joining me again for another cake tutorial. Again, if you are a patron of mine, you already got first dibs on this in the HBIC group and on my Patreon. I appreciate you guys ever so much. So much. If you guys want to see all the things that I'm doing like behind the scenes or what's going on with me on a daily, you can follow me on Instagram at Jalena Simpson. I'll be dropping that knowledge for you. You're welcome. I need sleep. Ow! That fucking hurt.